All right, aloha, friends. Welcome again to another episode of Game Time with the Goss. I'm Brian Gossett, and today joined by one of the best coaches, one of the nicest coaches, a good friend of mine, Billy Mathis, head football coach over at Brock. Year number three with the Eagles after leading after leading Brock to back-to-back state title appearances. First off, Coach Mathis, good to see you. Hopefully, you enjoyed your summer. Now it's back to business, week one. Can you kind of give us your thoughts about here in week one as you take on Pleasant Grove?
Yeah, man, it's great to see you, and it's always man, it's good to be back here. Really for us coaches, it's always, we try to take some summertime and relax and do all that, but if you talk to the kids, they say there's no break. So, had a great summer and started, fall, fall camp, I guess is what we call it nowadays, not really two-a-days anymore. Great fall camp. Had two good scrimmages against Springtown and Godly. This year is a little bit different than last year. We last year we had 10 seniors. This year we've got 23 seniors. So, we're a senior heavy team, and a lot of these guys that are seniors have started for me since they were sophomores. So, really excited about that. And then we go into week one right here, and we're going to go play one of the top rated teams in the state in Pleasant Grove. And Coach Gibson and those guys, not only are they extremely talented, but they're well coached. They are, man, they're tough as nails. And just the scheme that they run, it's tough enough. But they're in a little bit more shotgun stuff now. They still run a lot of the same type of offensive plays, but they're not all under center anymore. So it makes their offense a little bit more dynamic than it's been, in the past. And of course, those guys defensively, they're as good as anyone. They run to the ball well. They'll knock your head off, and they got guys that can cover you up. Play man press to go back there and play zone as good as anybody. So I'm excited about week one. I'm excited to see where we're at. And it's kind of one of those deals as coaches. You want to go be tested early. You want to go out there and see what you're made of. And this is one of those weeks where not only we're going to be tested, but we're going to see what we're made of, and see how good we are.
Yeah, can you kind of share some game details for this week?
Yeah, so Pleasant Grove brings back, they bring back a ton. I don't know how many guys they have. I know they got three or four guys that that have already committed to go play Division I football. So, and just I think being 4A, being in the top five in the state, on most polls, they're just they're just tough. They got a giant offensive line, and and for us, you know, last year when we went into the game, we wasn't really for sure exactly what we saw, and we went out there last year and started out in the first half. We were up 7-0, and we ended up losing the game. I think it was 28-7 or so. Came out in the third quarter and had a turnover, and they just keep doing what they do. They're not trying to trick you with smoke and mirrors. They're going to line up and they're just going to try to run right over the top of you, and just beat you up. And this year, watching the scrimmages that they have, I think they're a lot more dynamic in their passing game. Their quarterback, man, he can throw it 60 yards in the air. So, their passing game really opens up their offense a lot to where, you can't just pack everybody down in the box. So we're going to have to spread out. We're going to have to be great and, tackling well. We got to be able to cover the deep ball, and you got to be able to cover that quarterback when he scrambles out of there, because he can absolutely fly, and he's dynamic. So for us, it's one of these games where you got to go and game plan. They're going to line up and run the ball and have some heavy formations, and we've got to be able to match up defensively well, but we have to match up, well when they get into their spread stuff too. So, we're lucky. I think we got a lot of guys coming back on defense who, played them last year, and we got a lot of smart kids to where, we can do different things and line up different ways, but we're gonna have to sub guys in and out and keep that D line fresh. And really, I think that's a big key for us in this game and winning this game is keeping our D line fresh, rolling guys through there because still got Brock Riker and Hunter Fay and Dez Jones and, Cam Harris and got a kid back from injury last year who's going to play at the other defensive end named Thomas Taylor and Jackson Hart. So those guys will roll in there from defensive tackles to D ends and, try to keep them fresh, so we can go for 4 quarters. I think last year that was one of the big deals. They leaned on us and man, we got wore out there in the fourth quarter. And that was a big emphasis this summer too, going through summer training. Hey, how are we going to be ready? So when we're in the fourth quarter, we don't get worn down. We got to come out here and train right and, do those things. So, defensively, we got to be able to tackle well, but at the same time, you got to be able to get up there and, penetrate at times on, their big offensive line, the way they pull around and take on pullers. And, they're just very dynamic offensively. For us offensively, their D line is, as good as anybody that you'll face in the state. So, it's the same thing that coaches always say, and it's the truest thing in the world. You got to win the line of scrimmage if you're going to have a chance. So we've got to come out and be able to establish a run game and be able to get their D line moved out. And that's easier said than done. They've got their 3 linebackers. They'll trigger downhill and knock your head off, and they're fast and they'll run through you, around you. So we got to be able to establish a run game. We got to be able to get up there and, get Tutter running the ball well and get that O-line going. And luckily for us offensively, we got Fay back. We got 3 O-linemen back with Brock Riker and Hunter Fay. We got a new center named Alan Maga, who's going to start for us right there. So we got 3 seniors there on that offensive line. And we got two juniors. So, I think we're better up front this year right now at this time than we were last year. Last year having, 3 new guys on that offensive line, we struggled early. So right now I think we're better, with just more experience up front than we were last year at this time. So, with Brett Tutter being back and, Carson Finney and Jackson Hart there on the offensive side, that's a big deal for us. So, our biggest deal this summer and, this fall has been figuring out who our quarterback's going to be. Losing Tyler Moody, who's been a 2-year starter for us, that's tough to replace, the quarterback. And as well as I know, without a good trigger man back there, it's hard to get an offense going. So Brody Woods is going to be our starter. Brody Woods, he's a junior. His dad's he's one of our offensive line coaches, Aaron Woods. So Brody's done a great job, this summer, and he did a great job in our scrimmages. So he's going to be the starter for us, and, he's going to get out there and lead our offense. And what Brody brings, to the game is, the kids believe in him. And he's one of those guys, man, when the lights come on, anything can happen. And he's a playmaker, but he's very, very smart in what he does, right? He's very calculated in how he runs the offense. He's a student of the game. He gets with Coach Christensen and the offensive staff, and man, they spend a lot of time on the board and on video. So he's going to be ready to go. And I know he's excited about, his first real game as a Brock Eagle and getting out there and being the quarterback and leading us.
Yeah, so that game, Pleasant Grove, Friday night, now 8 p.m. at
Yes,
Royce City.
that's
Awesome.
right.
And you have one of the toughest non-district schedules in the state. After Pleasant Grove, you have Wichita Falls, Hershey, Wimberley, and Gunner, who coming off a undefeated state title in 3A D2.
Yeah.
Last year, you go 0-4, win 11 straight to reach the state title game. You mentioned having only 10 seniors, so kind of a younger group compared to going into this 4-game stretch with a more experienced group. But other than maybe the win-loss record in these first 4 games, what do you want to see from your team as you play some of the toughest teams in the state?
Really, I want to see us go out there, and I want to see us execute at a higher level earlier this season than we did last year. I thought last year we had some adversity, and I thought we did a great job of overcoming that adversity. You know, I'd like a little less adversity this year. Honestly, I'd like to see our O line get up there and, do a better job early in the year. I like to see us, really score more points and be a little bit more sharp on offense this year early in the year. And you're right. You go out there, and the best part about playing these tough teams is they, they show you where your weaknesses are, so you know where to work. And I tell people this all the time: nobody wants to lose, but you got to push yourself, you got to test yourself, but you can't be scared to go out there and lose either, right? And guys have got to learn from that. You've got to be able to learn from the adversity. You got to be able to learn from losses and take that and get better each week. So, I like us to be able to, after these first 4 games, to look back and say, this is where we are right now because of, the things that we were able to do offensively faster early in the year. And defensively, we got a lot of guys back. It'd be nice to be able to go out there and, to open up our defense. And, we play a lot of base defense, but to be able to open it up and do a lot more things earlier in the year.
Like I mentioned earlier, taking Brock to the state title game, back-to-back seasons, coming up runner-up. Obviously, you want to hoist that trophy at the end, but what do you take away from those 2 years? Is there any moral victories?
There's, after it's all said and done, you reflect back on it and you look and you think, man, you try to find all the positives that you can. Now it hurts, to lose that last game, and there's not a coach in the world that's happy, completely happy with the season unless you're holding up that, that big trophy and those gold medals at the end of the season. But, you look back on it and, some of the things that, really practice wise of how we do it, how we run our, in season lifting and stuff like that of, are we being physical enough in practice? Are we being too physical? Are we lifting enough through the seasons? Those are a lot of things that I think that affect your season. Because really for me, besides the X's and O's part, each week I try to make sure that, our guys are, 100% healthy by game day, so you got to work on recovery. It's a lot of those things. And a lot of that stuff is out of my hands, but it's the stuff that I can educate the parents on, and really educate the kids on. If we're going to be able to go out and be ready to go, we're going to go play Pleasant Grove. And I promise you, Saturday morning, the boys, they're going to be sore and hurting, and Monday morning, they'll still be sore and hurting, at the same time. I mean, you'll play physical like that. That's the way it is. But I've got to get them, recovered and ready to go by next Friday. So those are a lot of things that you look back over the seasons and you say, all right, man, we did this, we did that, from everything from ice baths to the way we lifted to when we practiced and how we practiced, that gets you to that point. So you can say, all right, once we get rolling in the district, how are we physically and mentally ready? Because you go through a long season, you go play 16 games, and man, it's mentally draining. And it is, it is on the coaches and it is on the kids. And you've got to find that fine line of how do kids keep that hunger going through the playoffs? How does it not become a grind to where, they get tired of practice and all that. And that's just natural human nature. So those are a lot of things that you learn, we talk about, as coaches from other schools, that say, hey, this is what we've done. These are some of the things that we've done for practice that help our kids stay mentally fresh. And those are a lot of the biggest takeaways that you get from playing 16 games, the last 2 years. You look back and, you go through all the video and you do stuff. And, I always thought, each year I thought our game plan was great. We just turnovers and, not executing is ultimately when you get to that time, it's, you can't have turnovers. You got to execute, right? And you got to take advantage of turnovers. And we just hadn't done that this last couple of years. But, and I know how hard it is to get to a state championship game, man. I know how blessed we are to get there. You don't want to be a runner-up, but at the same time, when you look back, you're thankful that you even had the opportunity to get there and play it because not many people get to. And, I've worked with coaches at times who had been in their career who had never even gone to the playoffs. And, so we're very thankful and very lucky. We know, even having the opportunities to go there and play.
Talking with Billy Mathis, head football coach at Brock High School. Uh, prior to Brock, spending time at Weatherford and then Alito, under the great Tim Buchanan, who just retired in the spring. Do you have a good Tim Buchanan story that you can share?
Yeah, I got a million Tim Buchanan stories. It's funny because, getting an opportunity to play for him and then coach for him and watching how he changed over the years. Of course, when he came into Alito, it was at the end of my freshman year. And sadly to say, my last year of football was the last year that Alito did not make the playoffs. They only took two teams in, and that was I graduated in '96. So the football season '95, that was year I think Boyd and Springtown made the playoff, or Decatur and Springtown made the playoffs that year for us in our out of our district. We'd beaten Boyd and Springtown beat us, and we go into the last game of the season, and man, a cold front blew in, and we're playing Decatur, and our quarterback, he was a sophomore at that time. His name was Dustin Proctor. Dustin gets kicked out of the game, and we were our best quarterback was a sophomore, so there wasn't a very good one after that. We end up losing, so we're hoping Springtown and figuring Springtown's going to beat Boyd. Well, Boyd ends up beating Springtown 3-0. I mean, you just couldn't believe it. Kick a field goal to win. And the best thing about Coach Buck, we were heartbroken after that. But the one thing he said to us, he said, "Guys, you had the opportunity in your hands, and you can't depend on somebody else to beat somebody else for us to get in the playoffs." And that was always something that I remembered all the time. Of if you're depending on somebody else to do something for you, right? You're wrong. You need to worry about taking care of business. And, we learned a lot from under him, and man, and he was tough on us, and he hammered us, and we couldn't get away with anything, and then I go to coach for him, and, and it's 6 years later, and I'm, out of college, and I go to work for him, and, I'm just a middle school coach. So, I'm just trying to do whatever, we're driving the buses, and, he and Coach Wood are, on my bus, and they're, telling me, "Hey, if you're not driving that bus as fast as possible, you're wrong." He's like, "You just go stand on the gas pedal and go and get there." So, everywhere I went, I felt like I was speeding around. And then we're coming back from a game out in Stephenville. And of course, we're on the Aledo bus, and I get pulled over for speeding, and all the crap I got from him and, and Coach Wood and all them about getting a speeding ticket on a bus. But, the best things about, Coach Buck, I mean, he just did so much for us as players and as coaches. And I think really and truly the best stuff he did for us was get us prepared to be a head coach. He let us coach, but I'll tell you this, he held us accountable, and he'd give you a butt chewing. And if you didn't have things right, and if you were out there chewing a kid's butt, he was always at you, "Hey, did you coach him up? Did you teach him right?" He was always very quick to say, "Hey, you better look at the way you're coaching before you go out there and just chew their butts, make sure they understand it 100%. So, those are the best stories that, that I have about him. He always did such a good job. You know, he's one of those guys that we all look to model our careers after, not only the win-loss records, but just of preparing coaches to go off and be head coaches, and the way he treated kids, and, the way that he, you know, the way he ran a community, everybody in the community looked up to him. And, he was one of those guys that if you had questions for him, he's going to give you the truth. And sometimes you might not like the truth. And, that was a lot of stuff that I take from him that I realized, don't go sugarcoat stuff with parents. Be honest with them, tell them up front, because as soon as you start sugarcoating it, man, it never works out for you. So he was a great leader for us, and a great example for me.
Did you kind of expect Coach Buck and Coach Wood to retire in the spring, or did the news in January and February kind of surprise you?
Well, I kind of had a feeling, and I talked to them both, and they had mentioned possibly doing it and that, but they'd done that before and
Yeah,
then switched and did all that. So I really didn't believe them. So you never know. And I know closer you start getting to the football season, the less you start thinking about, retiring. You start getting amped up and ready to go again. Think, all right, I can do it one more year. And really, with the team that they have coming back, I figured he'd stay for another year or so. But I'm excited for Robbie. Robbie Jones and the opportunity that he has. Robbie is, gosh, he's been there for 21, 22 years and been the OC for the past 13, or so years. So, Robbie's, he's the perfect man for that job and has, paid his dues and more. And I'm excited to see what, the stamp that he puts on the program over there and, watch him have a chance to go win a state championship.
uh, outside of Jonathan Gray, who do you think's the best football player at
Ooh,
Alito?
man, that's a tough one. That I that I, from Alito
Yeah,
yeah. So I didn't coach Broderick Newton, but he was there right before I was. But we had Kyle Hicks who was there. Kyle, big offensive lineman, went to the University of Texas and went to go play for the Patriots. But as a lineman, you don't get a whole lot of love. Wes Harris was as good as a football player that I've
yeah.
ever coached. I mean, that dude was he was unstoppable on defense. He was amazing on offense. He could throw the ball 70 yards. He was amazing, being a D line. But,
Still,
Cole Lofton, you
still
remember?
in 9 or 10 years of me being here, I think West is the only offensive line that I can remember winning a district MVP.
I know. That's right. I mean, that's how much of an impact he made on everything. So he's one of them. Cole Lofton he was there. He was a quarterback and gosh, what was it? 06, 07. Cole Lofton was amazing. His junior and senior year was a year we got beat by Copper's Cove and Robert Griffin was their quarterback. Cole went on to play receiver at SMU. So Cole Lofton was probably one of the best athletes that I ever had the opportunity to coach there in Aledo. So there was a bunch of them, but those guys were that I had the opportunity to coach, and linebacker wise, because I was the linebacker coach there for a while. In 2013, our middle linebacker was a kid named Jordan Mitty. Um, Jordan Mitty, probably one of the smartest, best linebackers. He went on, played some at Kansas State and ended up Texas State. So we had a bunch of good ones, but those guys were probably the best that I had the opportunity to coach personally.
Going back to Brock, uh, I know you got a ton of athletes. I'm just going to single one out, but Cam Harris, your linebacker, who also stars on the baseball team. Just what makes him such a freak athlete?
Man, I tell you what, that guy's drive that he has. I mean, to practice to the games, in his mind, he's constantly thinking, nobody's going to be able to block him, and he's constantly working on, you know, coming from the outside, from the defensive end spot to the outside linebacker spot of, how can I make sure that offensive lineman doesn't get his hands on me? He's just a worker and he's just one of those dudes, man. He's just tough as nails and athletically, he's fast but he hits like a train too. And he just got a great nose for the ball. But every day, man, that guy comes in, he's got a great attitude. He's always in a good mood. Everybody loves him. And he's just one of those guys. He's just naturally gifted, but man, he's just tough as nails too. And I think that's really what makes him so good, man. You know, I look out there at times, man, and he may have to go run into a 290-pound offensive guard who's pulling, and man, he's like, I don't care, coach, I'll do whatever. He's very selfless. He's going to do his job and he's going to do it great. So, man, but his toughness is what makes him so good.
And I think he's committed to play baseball at Houston.
Houston, yes,
I
absolutely. I'm very
wonder if
proud of
he.
him for that.
I wonder, get a chance to play some football there too.
He's had a lot of schools looking at him football wise. I think if he'd have been, it's crazy as college recruiting is, you know, it, an inch or two makes a difference a lot of times, and a couple pounds, of where you're going to be and who you're getting, offers from. I mean, it's crazy as it is, but it's the truth. I know like Sam Houston and Stephen F. Austin, schools like that were real big on Cam.
Well, yeah, I'm sure he's going to do great at Houston. Just your final thoughts before I let you go. Uh, just talk about this week's game, and shout out to your fans. I know your fans will come out to Royce City, even though it may be 107 or whatever it is. But what do you want your fans to know about this week's game?
That's right. So, really and truly, man, it's going to be a great game. It's going to be, two big time programs going at it, So I'm excited for where we're at right now in this season. I think we got a team that's got a chance, to go and win this game. We're going to have to go out there and we're going to have to, not turn the ball over, go out there and play great defense. And I know it's stereotypical sayings, but it's the truest sayings in the world. And the greatest thing about Brock America is they show up. And man, I want them to come out and be loud and get there early. Because I'll say this too, Pleasant Grove, they've got a tough student section too, and those guys get there early during warm up, and boy, they'll get out there and they're screaming from the stands. We showed up last year, and boy, and they're just roasting us the entire time. They've done their homework on the players and the players' girlfriends and all that. So, you know, I like it when the fans have their battles too. So I know our fans are going to show up, the Blue Crew and all that. So our seniors are going to be ready. So it's going to be a great night, man. Can't think of a better way to kick off a season. It's going to be an 8 o'clock start, so it's going to be nice and cool, and we're going to get out there and get after it.
Awesome. Once again, Brock versus Pleasant Grove Friday, 8 p.m. at Royce City. Uh, Coach, we wish you the best of luck this year. We'll come up to some games, and always a joy to talk to you.
Man, you too. It's great seeing you, man. It's going to be a great season, and I know state of Texas is going to be amazing this year.
Awesome. That's Coach Billy Mathis from Brock High School. Thanks again for joining me. I'm Brian Gossett with Game Time with the Goss. Enjoy the season opener this week, Texas high school football, and we see you next time.